The prison shower room door swung shut with a heavy clang. Two young inmates stood against the wall, breathing hard, looking at Mike Tyson, who was calmly hanging his towel on a hook. "We good?" Mike asked. They both nodded quickly. "We're good." "We're sorry for barging in like that." But what had made these two so terrified and out of breath? Mike was about to ask when the door burst open with the same force. What drove them into that room would become clear seconds later. What happened next never made the news, and it wasn't supposed to. It was mid-afternoon in 1993, several months into Mike Tyson's sentence. He was 26 years old, finding his rhythm and the daily routines of prison life. His cell block had the 2:00 p.m. shower slot that day. Mike had finished lunch and headed back to his cell to grab his towel and soap. The shower room was one of the few places in the facility where he had any real privacy. Guards monitored the corridor outside but didn't stand inside watching. For those 10 minutes, you could almost feel like a regular person again. Showers were strictly timed. Miss it, and you waited another day. Mike walked down the corridor around 2:05, towel over his shoulder, small plastic container of soap in hand. He preferred going a few minutes into the slot, let the crowd thin out, have some space. The shower room was empty when he entered quiet, just water dripping from shower heads that hadn't been fully turned off. The sound echoed off yellow tile walls. The shower room was tiled, damp, and permanently slick from years of use. Mike set his things on a bench and began his routine. He hung his towel on a hook, set his soap container nearby, and started to remove his prison uniform shirt. The room was peaceful. The constant noise of the prison shouting, metal doors clanging, guards barking orders, all of it was muffled here. Just the sound of dripping water and his own breathing. Then Mike heard something different from the corridor outside. Footsteps, but not normal walking. Running fast, getting louder. Someone's running, Mike thought, pausing. In a hurry or in trouble. Before he could process which one, the shower room door exploded open with a loud bang. Two young inmates burst through, moving at full sprint. The first was white, maybe mid-20s, thin and wiry, with the build of someone who'd lost weight in prison. The second was Latino, younger, early 20s, equally thin. Both had their eyes wide with fear, chests heaving. They didn't even glance at Mike. They ran straight past him, toward the far corner of the room, pressing themselves against the wall between two unused shower heads, breathing hard, looking back at the door, terrified. Mike turned fully from the bench. "You guys okay?" The white kid, Jimmy, looked at Mike like he just noticed someone else was there. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He was trying to catch his breath, hands on his knees. The Latino kid, Louis, just shook his head rapidly, unable to speak, his whole body trembling slightly. "They're not okay?" Mike thought. "They're scared, running from something." "What's going on?" Mike asked, his voice calm but firm. "Who are you running from?" Jimmy finally gasped out between ragged breaths. "Two guys. They're after us." "They're going to." Just then, the door swung open with a controlled, purposeful creak. Two much larger inmates stepped through. The first was Rick, a heavily muscled guy in his early 40s. Right behind him was Tyrone, just as big, just as intimidating. Rick's cold eyes locked on to Jimmy and Louis. "There you are," he said, his voice a low growl. "Thought you could run from us." He then noticed Mike standing by the benches, and his expression hardened. Mike stepped forward, placing himself between the two groups. "Hold on," Mike said calmly. "What's going on here?" Rick didn't flinch. "This doesn't concern you, Tyson. These two owe us money. Stay out of it." Tyrone moved up beside him. "We're collecting a debt. Time's up." Jimmy found his voice. "Pleading, we'll pay you back. We just need 2 more days." "This ends today," Rick interrupted, his voice final. "What happens next? Find out in the next episode. Thanks for watching." "I'm asking you to leave," Mike replied, keeping his voice level. "Take your business out of here. Come back to it later, somewhere else." Tyrone let out a short laugh. "Man, you think because you are some famous boxer outside, you run things in here. That's not how prison works. Tyson, different rules." "Same rules everyone should follow," Mike said. "Don't chase people. Don't corner them. Don't use violence to collect debts. Rick took a step closer to Mike close enough, now that there was no mistake in the confrontation. These two made a deal. They broke it, were enforcing it. That's how things work in here. If you don't like it, that's your problem, not ours. It becomes my problem when you bring it into a space where people are just trying to shower, Mike said. His voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath. You want to settle debts? Do it in the yard. Do it in the cafeteria, not here. We're not leaving until we get what we came for. And what's that? Mike asked. What they owe us, Rick said, one way or another. We don't have anything. We told you nothing on ourselves, nothing in commissary. Then you're going to pay another way, Tyrone said, cracking his knuckles for emphasis. Here's what's going to happen, Mike said, his voice dropping slightly, but somehow carrying more weight. You two are going to leave right now. These two get their commissary in 2 days. They'll settle with you then. In the meantime, you'll walk away. Rick stared at Mike for a long moment. And if we don't... You have a problem you didn't expect to have today, Mike replied simply. Tyrone shifted his weight, hands coming up slightly. You realize there's 2 of us, right? You? And what, these 2 scared kids? That's not good math for you. I'm aware of the numbers, Mike said calmly. Rick glanced at Tyrone, something passing between them silently, then back at Mike. You really want to do this? Get involved in something that has nothing to do with you. I'm making it simple, Mike said. Leave now. Come back to this in 2 days when they can actually pay you, or don't. But you're not doing this here. Now, like this. Rick's face flushed with anger. You think you're tough? Think! Because you won some fights in a ring with rules and a referee. That means something in here. I think you should reconsider your next move very carefully, Mike replied. Rick's hands curled into fists. His posture changed, became more aggressive. You're making a big mistake, Tyson. He took 2 quick steps forward, closing the distance between himself and Mike, clearly intending to use his size and proximity to intimidate, to make Mike back down or second-guess getting involved. A short, perfectly timed punch. The punch connected with Rick's jaw with a solid thud that echoed off the tile walls. Rick's head snapped to the side. His eyes went unfocused immediately. His forward momentum stopped like he'd hit a wall. His knees buckled and he dropped straight down to the wet tile floor, landing on his backside, then tilting slowly to the side. He wasn't unconscious. His eyes were still open. Blinking slowly, but he was clearly dazed, his brain struggling to process what had just happened. The entire sequence from Rick stepping forward to Rick on the floor had taken maybe 2 seconds. Tyrone stared at his partner on the ground, shock clear on his face. He'd seen Rick intimidate dozens of inmates, watched people back down from him constantly. Seeing him dropped with a single punch was completely outside Tyrone's experience. Tyrone's eyes snapped back to Mike, and his hands came up in a defensive posture that quickly shifted to offensive. He was bigger than Rick, and he clearly thought his size would make a difference. He moved toward Mike, hands reaching out, trying to grab the user's weight advantage to overwhelm. Mike's left hand shot out, catching Tyrone with a punch to the solar plexus. That soft spot right below the sternum where a well-placed strike can knock all the air out of someone's lungs. The impact was controlled but effective. Tyrone's forward motion stopped instantly. His mouth opened in a gasping O shape, but no sound came out. His hands went from reaching for Mike to clutching his own chest. His face showed the panic of someone who suddenly can't breathe. He stumbled backward 2 steps, then bent forward at the waist, both hands on his knees, making desperate wheezing sounds as his diaphragm tried to remember how to function. Mike stood between the 2 young inmates and the 2 collectors, his breathing unchanged, his posture relaxed. The whole confrontation, from Rick's aggressive approach to both men neutralized, had taken maybe 5 seconds total. Rick was still on the floor, propped up on one elbow, his other hand rubbing his jaw, his eyes starting to focus again, but still showing confusion about what had happened. Tyrone was slowly getting small amounts of air back into his lungs, each breath a struggle, still bent over, still unable to speak or stand fully upright. Mike looked down at Rick. I told you to leave. Rick's mouth moved, but no words came out at first. Finally, in a voice much quieter than before, You hit me. You came at me, Mike replied simply. I responded. Now you're leaving, both of you. Tyrone was starting to breathe more normally now, though each breath still sounded painful. He straightened up slightly, one hand still on his chest, looking at Mike with new understanding. This wasn't someone you could intimidate or overpower with size. We're going, Tyrone managed to say, his voice strained, Rick tried to get to his feet, struggled, and fell back. Tyrone moved over to help him, pulling Rick up by his arm. Rick's legs were unsteady, not quite supporting his weight properly. "This isn't over," Rick said, but there was no conviction in his voice. It was the automatic response of someone who just lost but needed to save some face. "Yeah, it is," Mike replied calmly. "It's over. You're leaving. These two will settle with you in 2 days when commissary comes through. Until then, you leave him alone." Rick looked like he wanted to say something else, but Tyrone was already pulling him toward the door. They moved slowly. Rick still unsteady, Tyrone supporting him. At the door, Rick turned back one more time, looking at Mike. Not with anger anymore, but with something closer to respect mixed with resentment. Then they were gone, the door swinging shut behind them. The shower room was silent except for heavy breathing. Jimmy and Lewis against the wall, their fear slowly transitioning to relief and disbelief at what they just witnessed. Mike turned to look at them. "You two? Okay." Jimmy nodded. Unable to speak yet, Lewis managed a quiet yeah. Mike walked back to his bench and picked up his soap. "You should shower quick and get out of here and be smarter about who you borrow from. These lending operations, they're traps. Interest rates that make it impossible to pay back, you're better off doing without." Jimmy found his voice. "Thank you. Seriously, thank you. Nobody else would have." "Don't need the whole story," Mike interrupted, not unkindly. He turned on a shower head, testing the water temperature. "Just learn from it." "We will," Lewis said quickly. "We're really sorry for bringing that in." "Not your fault they chased you," Mike said. "Just be careful going forward." Jimmy and Lewis moved to shower heads on the opposite wall, giving Mike space, clearly not wanting to disturb him further. He took his time, let the lukewarm water run over him, washing away the tension of the confrontation. When he was done, he dried off, got dressed, and walked back to his cell like it was just another ordinary afternoon. But by dinner time, the story had started spreading through the facility. As always in prison, stories got told and retold, details shifting with each telling. The truth getting buried under layers of exaggeration and personal interpretation. Some inmates said Mike had knocked out both Rick and Tyrone in the shower room. Some said it was 3 guys, not 2. Some said Rick and Tyrone had pulled weapons. Some said Mike had used a mop handle as a weapon himself. Rick told people that Mike had attacked him and Tyrone without warning while they were just trying to talk to Jimmy and Lewis about a debt that he and Tyrone had been jumped, sucker punched, caught off guard. Jimmy and Lewis told their friends the truth, that Rick and Tyrone had chased them into the shower room, cornered them, and Mike Tyson had stepped in when they were about to get beaten for money. They'd deep pay back in 2 days anyway. But the real story, the truth of what actually happened, was simpler. 2 young inmates who de-borrowed commissary items and could pay them back on time were being hunted by 2 predatory lenders who ran a profitable operation exploiting desperate inmates. Those 2 young inmates ran into a shower room hoping for safety and instead found Mike Tyson preparing for a routine shower. The 2 collectors followed them in, intent on using violence to send a message about what happens when you do UNT pay debts on time. Mike asked them to leave to handle their business somewhere else, to give the 2 young inmates the 2 days they needed to get commissary and actually pay. Rick and Tyrone refused. They escalated. They became physical. Mike ended it in 5 seconds. 2 punches, controlled force, just enough to stop the immediate threat and make it clear the situation was over. Rick and Tyrone left. Jimmy and Lewis were okay. Mike took a shower. That was the story. Everything else was just noise.